when you talk about parenting, one of the worst things you can do is to treat all your kids equally, because they're completely different kids and they have different needs and they respond differently. And employees are that same way. So when you find out, hey, this is what motivates this person and this is how they respond, this is how they learn, then you can start to truly onboard them by designing a workplace that they're going to be comfortable in, and then you're going to retain them.
So I'm really excited about our guest today. I have known him for years and years and years, and he was probably my first, when I was a business owner, my first person that I got to know who was had this business that was steps ahead of mine, and had this business that he'd grown out. It's oh, I want my business to look like that. And he's super smart, and he's an Army veteran, so that makes him even cooler. I'm really excited to have Mike Wolbrink on the show with us today. So welcome, Mike.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation.
I want to jump in because I want to dive right now. I'm fascinated with your journey and your story, and I'm going to get right into talking about hiring. So, question just to put you under the gun, just to start it off and have some fun with it. How the hell do you know as a business owner that you're actually ready to hire?
That is an incredibly difficult question. And the blessing and curse of being a business owner is employees.
100% agreed.
They are our biggest blessing, and they can be our biggest headaches all at the same time. And just because you bring somebody on doesn't mean today they're not going to be your biggest blessing and tomorrow they're not going to be your biggest headache, because they can be both. And but people are, we're successful because of teams, right?
For sure.
The Azul logo is 8 heads around one problem, and that it really takes a team to accomplish things. But it can be a really challenging thing, Donnie.
Yep, for sure. I know for us, it came down to we just got too much capacity, right? We had too many things going in too many directions, and we needed help and support to accomplish, the overall mission of things we're trying to accomplish. So, is there a area that people should be looking at in their business? For most businesses, they're solopreneur, they're starting to grow. What's that first hire most people should make, in your opinion?
I really think it depends on the business, and I'm a big fan of outsourcing. So when we talk about, the CPA role, when we talk about, other advisory roles and different things like that, I don't think you can really outsource sales, and I know Kevin's got a big background on that side, but everything else, when you can outsource that, I think that's really good. But there comes a point, like you just mentioned, where you can't outsource it. You have to have somebody here, or it's not economically beneficial to outsource it. That's when you have to have that first hire. Now, if you're a painter, you're obviously going to need a crew at some point in time, because you have to do that to reach capacity. If you're, a staffing company, you're going to need recruiters. You're going to need other things like that. And so it just depends on each one. But once you can't outsource, then you got to bring it inside.
Well, and it's funny because most small businesses, the first thing that they want to hire for is sales. Yeah. We have this conversation with people all the time. They're like, yeah, I need to hire salespeople. We're like, you can't sell yourself. You haven't figured that piece out to be able to do it yourself. Why? Bringing on salespeople is not the answer. That's actually going to make more problems initially than solve them. So, I'm really big on that operations side. I think, the ability to outsource or hire someone who takes things off the plate of the CEO, that allows them to do more things on actually focuses on scaling and growing the business. So being in front of more clients, doing more strategic work, and actually doing CEO things is, I think, the really key piece of hiring or bringing on a team.
Oh, I would completely agree. And I think for a long time, and, businesses are in seasons. We can talk more about that in a little bit, but, the owner of the company needs to be that best salesperson. They have to be the one out telling the story.
Why, Mike?
Because
we say it all the time, but I want to hear you say it.
Right. But nobody knows the story better. And unless they're emotionally or intellectually or socially tone deaf, they can hear what the clients need and address it and help them in an advisor position.
I'm going to keep that little phrase in my back pockets, socially tone deaf. I just love that entire phrase, and I'm going to use that on a more regular basis. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mike, but I love that statement.
He's going to use it at
I've
me.
seen it like 8 times this week.
He's totally
Kevin's
going to be using that on me.
Kevin's new nickname is socially tone deaf.
But it's just people don't take the time to listen. But when you get somebody, in sales or the owner, and they actually try to engage with that client and say, okay, what do you really need? Then we can start to have business with good clients. We've really made adjustments in our business model, and we still have some major clients like Medtronic and Cargill and Gartner and some of these major clients, but we're really going after specific clients of 250 people or less, because I can have a relationship with somebody in that business and say, okay, what do you need? What is your culture like? How do we make that fit? And I think Donnie, your question about when do you make that first hire, it's when you find the person that matches your culture is almost as important. Actually, it's probably more important, because
you find somebody to that point, I want to hire for culture and then teach them to be able to be great at their job.
You can do that to a great extent, but knowing that when you're training that person, it's really going to decrease what you're doing. Because no matter how well you train, sorry,
for a moment,
for a bit, but when you train that person, the best they're ever going to do is 85% of your intention.
That's a valid point.
They're never going to get it perfectly. And so you have to, now sometimes they'll do it better than you can imagine. And that's a great hire. If they can stretch, it's like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought of that. We had a person at Azul that was running, she was focused on doing our payroll. And Amparo did a great job, because she would come up with say things like, hey, did you know we could do this way and it would be better?
Oh, those are the best employees, man. They're the absolute best.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I want to retract my statement that I want to always hire for culture and then teach. The only reason I say that is to scale a business. Ultimately, you're going to have people that are 100 billion times better at things than you are. Like at some point, we're going to have people that can outsell us. We're going to have people that are thinking on more global reach and global expansion and the like. So there is a exception to every rule for sure. As people are, bringing on, whether they're outsourcing or they're bringing on these new people, what does that onboarding process look like? What are the things they need to do early on to ensure success? Because I've screwed it up royally in the past, like really bad.
Well, I think that there's a couple of different things. One, if you hire a person, then you're going to want to get to know them. And in that onboarding process, you need to understand, okay, what are their love languages? As horrible as that sounds, that's not a anti-HR thing. It's what really makes them tick.
Love languages is actually a psychology. It's a book out there if y'all are curious.
Yeah. And so what motivates them? And how do we reach them, and how do we incentivize them? Because when you talk about parenting, one of the worst things you can do is to treat all your kids equally, because they're completely different kids and they have different needs and they respond differently. And employees are that same way. So when you find out, hey, this is what motivates this person and this is how they respond, this is how they learn, then you can start to truly onboard them by designing a workplace that they're going to be comfortable in, and then you're going to retain them.
That's interesting. I'd never thought of, and because I've heard the concept of love languages before, and I've seen a couple where it's phrased in forms of tacos, and I thought that was really interesting. But But I've never looked at it as how it applies to employees and how they get motivated. And so I think that's really interesting. Donnie, what's your love language?
So I've actually never read the book, if I was completely honest, but I know one of them is acknowledgement. That's a big thing for me. As we do things, I like to be recognized for stuff. And the same token, that drives me freaking bonkers because I just shouldn't need to be acknowledged for stuff, right? But that's why I always went after awards and things, because awards were proof of acknowledgement. That's why I won all the sales awards and everything, because now I got that acknowledgement.
Yeah, that was mine too. When I was in the sales arena, was I wanted to be the top number one each month. I wanted the recognition. I wanted to be the one the GM was calling out for, most sales, whatever the recognition was. That was the one I wanted to win. So, I think that the funny thing is I don't like to be publicly acknowledged. I don't want to be
controlled knowledge, right? That's why I tell everybody I like being center of attention as long as I'm controlling that attention, right? I'm purposely making it happen. Like, I don't want to be called out in the middle of the room and asked to perform type of thing. But if I won something, cool, I'm up. I want that acknowledgement.
Yeah, I want the hardware, but I don't necessarily want to have the hardware praises. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily have all the praises sung about me like in public in front of a big group and have me, because then I just get all embarrassed and stuff. So,
well, now we know what we're going to do with this next summit.
You did it the first summit to me.
Of course I did.
So.
Business awards are something really, really interesting because at Azul, we have just won, buckets of awards, and you've been to our office a while ago, Kevin.
They're wall covered. top 10 places to work in the Twin Cities, and all, like every year in a row for the last, decade. So,
and thank you. What really was interesting about that is that it was great for the team, esprit de corps. And it was great for branding, but it didn't get us a lot of new business, but it helped us get on message. So there are some benefits to a lot of those awards.
Tell me about that. What do you mean by it helped you get on message?
So like, for example, we won Veteran Business Award or Veteran Business of the Year award from the SBA.
Okay.
And that's a pretty notable accomplishment. But in order to do that, we had to gather what we were doing right and being able to put that down. And it enabled everybody to have that elevator speech much more highly polished because we had done that and then taken that to different organizations.
So to win that award, you had to submit documentation of some sort, and then to do that, you had to bring the team together. That's actually an interesting idea, and Kevin makes me wonder what awards should we go after to do that same process.
Well, and I've heard you say that to other businesses multiple times, that apply for every award that you can. And whether you get it or not, go through the process and go through the work of doing it. And it makes absolute sense. It's not just the action of getting the award. It literally makes people think about what the business is and what it does and how you phrase it so that people get it. And that is
it's almost an issue for team building. Yeah, it's almost a team building activity.
Yeah, it really can, Donnie, be a team building thing. And what you find out when you get the team together to go after that award is you find out areas that you might not be going after that you should be. So there was a 10,000K small or 10K small business opportunity. I was given a mini master's by Babson and Goldman Sachs. And in that process, we came back and we really focused on what we do well. And we added a whole new section of project management to that because of feedback from the team. Was really great.
That's actually really fascinating. I would have never thought about going through an award process to dive into what you're doing well. We're gonna have to give that a go and see what we can find. I don't know if I want to add that much more crap to my plate because we're already doing all the things, but I like the overall idea of it. Oh,
and then the other thing is a lot of the awards, 3/4 of the awards that are out there, I'm not going to mention names, they're okay. There's only a couple of them that are really worth striving and going after.
Cool. Can you give me a list of those? Like email me just a list of the good ones so I don't waste my time with all the other ones.
Yes. We can have an offline conversation about that because some of those are really worthwhile and some of them, it's like, great, thank you, I appreciate it, and have a great day. So, but that's really about protecting your brand as well. So.
Yeah, the thing that drives me nuts about a lot of these awards or recognition things is all the emails you get on. Hey, if you'll spend $8,000, we'll put you in the
I got one this morning.
Did you?
Yeah, sales program development, top 10 technology sales program development companies in the United States. Only cost me $3,000 to get on the list.
No, it's just a lot of that stuff just isn't worthwhile, but it is a good team building thing, and your employees do appreciate that for the most part. It also tells you we had one employee that, she just wasn't going to be a part of the team no matter what. I mean, she was good at her job, but that made it really interesting. And, you say, be slow to hire and quick to fire. You really have to look at that. So,
yeah, because it's always interesting because people are always their best on interview day. Yeah, you always get that best version of themselves. Sometimes it takes a little while for the real person to actually show up because some people are just damn good interviewers. And unfortunately, some people are sucking at interviewing too.
Well, and there's an IT company that we're working with in Egan. Actually, they're an insurance company, and we're working on an IT position. And that position is going to be a contract to hire position. And the IT director really enjoys contractors. And he's like, well, why would I not, if I'm going to hire somebody full time, why would I not bring this person on temp to hire? So they're going to do 3.5 months or so on our payroll, and then they're going to join their team. And that's great because then you really get to know them. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, you know what? It's neither here nor there. It just wasn't a great cultural fit. So, or not a cultural fit, but fit for a lot of other reasons usually.
Yeah,
we usually get culture out of the park.
That whole concept of people always putting their best foot forward in interviews. When I was a sales manager, I always made my best candidates do ride-alongs with my sales team because they would all pretenses were gone as soon as they got in that vehicle with my sales guy. They started acting like a salesperson. And they stopped acting like a candidate for a job. And my guy would come back, this guy's a total dick. He would not fit on the team. Here's all the issues. Or this guy's solid. He actually knows his stuff, and we had a really awesome day together. So that is really key. And it's funny because candidates don't think about that when we put them out with the employees to hang out. They're like, oh, cool. I can just let all my guards down. The same token, when we were helping I did a lot of sales training. We were helping companies bring in their sales executives and their leadership teams inside the sales side of things. We would make them go out to dinner and bring their spouse along. Because we're getting a really, really, really inside look. Two things that I've always looked for. How are they going to treat the servers? Because if you're an asshole to a server, you're going to be an asshole everywhere, right? And the second side of that is how do they treat their spouse, right? If they don't put their spouse in the limelight, they make them take a back seat. It's very telling about a lot of things that we found, especially for the type of companies we were helping them find their sales leaders for.
Donnie, that's so really wise. And you can learn an awful lot when you share a meal with somebody.
So I want my editing team to grab that and make that a loop. Donnie, that's so wise. Thank you for that, Mike. It
had to happen. Eventually, someone was going to call you wise, and not just a wise ass. So,
right.
I think editing team cut out that part. Should I say it again so they hit the proper loop?
Likely.
It's really funny that you say that because Henry Ford would take people out to eat.
Oh.
He'd take his new managers out to eat. And if they would salt their food before they tasted it, he wouldn't hire them.
Because
how can you make a judgment and make an adjustment before you know what it is?
And as a couple of guys who love to cook, both Kevin and I 100% agree with that. Yep. If I've spent hours making a meal and you salt it before you even taste it, that's like highly offensive.
So there's a caveat to that rule. If you're at my house, because my mom has gotten rid of most of the salt and most of the sugar in her cooking because of Dad. I just automatically salt my food now because I know there's not any in it to begin with. So
noted.
There's that one caveat.
Noted. So Kevin's just a rude asshole. He's going to salt everything you cook. Got it. You
no, just at my mom's house. Just at my house.
Too funny. Mike, I know you talk a lot about the seasons of business. What is that in your phraseology? Tell us a little bit about that.
I've been an entrepreneur for almost 25 years, and it's what I've really seen time and time again. And, we are also, as you guys know, we're a faith-based group. Seasons come and go. And I think that one of the things that we really have to look at is embracing each new season of business. And so you might be in a season of growth, and that's great. Embrace that. But then know that there's going to be a season where you plateau and embrace that as well. And then there might be a season where you contract. And if those are all for good reasons, there's no reason to say, oh, well, I'm feeling really down because we contracted. We contracted a bunch right before the pandemic, and that's one of the best things I ever did. And so I would. So
is that to 3 seasons then? Growth, plateau, and contract.
Well, and yes, I think that's really what we look at, and you're going to go through those things, but you can break those down into smaller sections as well, because you might be in a season of where you're really going after a particular type of client. You might say, hey, this is really the next thing I have to chase. Maybe I'm going to go after IT companies, or maybe I'm going to go after this, or maybe go after that. And it's a season where you really do that. And it's like, okay, I've worked on that market. So you can have different things that you go, but I think sometimes we forget to say it's the end of the season, and that's okay. That sales effort didn't work, or it worked really well, but now we've reached market saturation. So that season's over. And I think a lot of people don't know how to say, that's good for now.
Well, that's fascinating, because I know for sure as a company we've gone through, we'll call them seasons, but we've started, chased down ideas, started projects that we no longer do, and things like that. And sometimes you can hold on to things for way too long because you just have in your head it's going to work until you finally get to the point you're like, okay, this is too much energy and effort to keep chasing this thing at the moment. We can come back to it at another time. Oh, that's fascinating, because we've also gone on the journey of clients and who we're targeting, who we're going after, and the evolution, if you will, of our businesses has been tremendous from where we started. And if you look at the networking groups, from who we were targeting early on, kind of anybody with a heartbeat to get the thing off the ground, to where we're now focusing more on the B2B business owners and bringing them into the mix. So that's a cool way to look at it. How does somebody recognize what stage they are in?
I think that takes a lot of self-awareness and being able to just step back and say, hey, what's realistic? And it's not, I'm not going to say you take yourself too seriously, but some people don't take the time to just step back and reflect on what we're doing. And the other thing that when we combine with that, Donnie, is, grace through this whole process is incredibly important.
Because you can beat the hell out of yourself being a business owner.
Well, not just yourself, but your employees.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see other business owners.
I beat the hell out of Kevin all the time. So
you're going to see other business owners that really screw up.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, hey, you know what? Am I going to be pissed at that person forever? Or do I think that there's a possibility that they made a change and we might be able to work with them again?
Well, and we put in place really early in Success Champions the whole concept of within our culture of go break shit.
Yeah.
With the idea that if you aren't trying stuff and screwing it up, you're not actually growing and scaling your business. So, and we're starting to look at, how do we integrate this into our team concept of giving them that ability to try stuff and say, all right, so I did this and it didn't work. Here's what screwed up, but here's what we learned. And now here's what we're going to be able to do better in the future. And I think that you as a business owner, we have to keep that in the forefront, that if our employees aren't going out and trying stuff, we're going to be stuck where we're at forever. And you don't actually have an effective team. You just have a group of followers that are just going to wait for you to tell them what to do.
Yeah. And Kevin, tell me more about that, because one of the things that was an issue, a problem, I don't know how you want to describe that, but it's the entrepreneur dreams big, and then like you said, you have these followers, and a lot of times they can't catch the vision, or they aren't able to see that you're chasing new things, and that can cause a lot of division in a small company.
Yeah, and I think really for us, it was that was very much a Donnie thing that he brought to the table when we started working together, of like, oh, let's go try this. And 80% was good enough. And I was able to really wrap it around the whole concept of, how we learned to do planning in the military through MDMP, that 80% right now is better than 97 or 100% too late. We have to have just that workable plan that we can that we can give to the subordinate units to start executing. And then we can keep refining it as we go. We had to do the exact same thing so we could iterate really quickly, and that we could then test things out. And it was having that in place was really powerful for me as an introvert, because I'm an analytical guy. I want to overanalyze and think and put together the really great plan and have the best information possible. So making decisions, sometimes Donnie still has to say, Kevin, just make a decision.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah, just do one. I don't care which one it is. Just pick one and we're doing it. So, that go break stuff gives you permission to try something new and not have to be afraid of repercussions if it doesn't work.
Well, and to add to that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Mike. It was the idea of Google, having their 20% time, where they told their employees, you get 20%. And I want to be around people that always want to tinker with things, always want to try new stuff, and always want to figure things out. I don't want to sit around with a bunch of people that just do. Like, just having a bunch of data entry type people that's all they do is a mundane activity is not something I'm interested in. Right. So we look for people that completely geek out on whatever it is we're hiring them for. So like recently we hired a young guy named Lou to handle our YouTube stuff. And this kid just geeks out on YouTube. So young guy. And in finding people like this, you don't have to give them a whole lot of direction. You give them a mission of what you want them to accomplish, and then you let them go and give them the freedom to go break things along the way, knowing that we're going to figure it all out. And if you can create an environment where everybody's willing to try stuff because there's no consequence, unless they royally fuck something up. I mean, you can really screw some things up, but like if the YouTube channel were to shut down or something because they did something unethical or illegal, now we got problems. But if you create an environment where people are allowed to test and try and go get creative, you're going to find some amazing business breakthroughs, and some things that we weren't looking for in the first place will pop up because they're geeking out and tinkering with stuff. What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, I think that's incredibly powerful. I think the challenge is to find people with that mindset.
Agreed.
And that really is, there's so many different ways to hire people. There's so many different ways to bring people on. But finding some of those folks that are going to be able to do that is just incredibly valuable. And I have to say that I probably have a 30% personal success rate in doing that. I've probably got an 80%, 85% success rate placing people that do that. But it's sometimes the internal hires that are the hardest ones.
Yeah, well, there's more emotion attached to it, right? So as we're hiring now, it's okay. We're going to be the one spending every day with them. We're going to be the one, doing the ins and outs. So we more often make a gut call versus a logic call in those type of situations. And although I'm a go with your gut guy, I can't not say that my gut calls haven't always been 100% spot on, and I've done some bad judgment calls. But I think also, and as business owners, we want to see the good in people. We want to see the good stuff, and that can tend to cloud us looking and noticing things we should have caught in initial conversations and the likes. We recently,
we gloss over that all the time because we are the honest, we're an optimist. That's why we're running a business. Because if we were a pessimist, we never would have started anything.
For sure.
So it really is hard. And that's really why, I'm not going to, okay, so there's the 10-second commercial, but really finding somebody else that can help you find good people and screen those people is so important. Because when we place, an ad for somebody, or we're trying to find somebody as a business owner, then we have all these different resumes to sort through, and we're trying to find the best one. If we've got somebody that can help us sort those guys, and for this position, I bet I've looked at 150 resumes for this IT position, and I've sent 3 people forward. And just to filter out the noise, but each one of these 3 people could do the job, and that's why it's a hard decision. But to filter out the noise is just so important, and we want to know about these folks, and if you're individually hiring, HR can come and jump up and down on your desk if you're asking the wrong questions in the interview, where, as you say, hey, I got a guy and we know a guy and we can bring them in and they're vetted other ways. It's a lot more success in that format.
So one of my biggest issues when I bring on team members, and it's been like this for years, and I'm working on it, Donnie, just leave me alone, is, it's really hard for me to give up the task, because I'm an integrator personality. So I do the stuff. I am, especially when it comes to the automations that I build, giving up, letting someone else come into my sandbox and touch my toys and do things is really hard for me. And it's really hard for me to give up the actual control and say, all right, go build this thing. Whereas I'll just build it quick. It'll be faster and I'll get it done the way I wanted to do it. Be done. How do owners figure out how to do that? How do they make that transition from doing the stuff to managing other people doing it without micromanaging and driving the new employees insane?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, Kevin, that comes back to that outsourcing thing that we had earlier. We're willing to outsource so many other things. We'll outsource some of our accounting stuff. We'll outsource even office maintenance. We'll outsource, all kinds of things. Well, maybe not in Donnie's case, outsourcing maintenance, because he still likes to ride the buffer, right? As a Marine, but that's a whole other subject. But we outsource everything else. And I think, Kevin, giving it a try is the first thing that you have to have. Working with somebody that it's not going to cost anything for their opinion. It's not going to cost anything to talk to these first couple of people. And then it's like, oh, you know what? These guys have a handle on this, and they really are listening to me, and they're trying to figure this out. That's it. You got to give it a try, because at some point in time, you can't just build everything in your sandbox. You have to expand.
Well, and I think it goes back to, I have some of the same struggles in this arena and different things, but it comes back to, at some point, we've got to find people that are more talented and more skilled in certain areas than the things we can do. I'm dreading the day when I've got to find the salesperson that can outsell me, because that's been my MO for years. I've always been the top gun, in all the companies I work with. But I know that I can only take us so far. I can have the biggest vision in the world, but it's going to take the biggest team that are experts in their key areas to be able to take us to that next level. So there's going to come a time to where I'm going to have to get my ego out of the way and bring in the right people. And that's going to be a tough moment. I'm not going to lie, because I like the competition of it all. So it'll be interesting.
So, Donnie, I have a question around that, because salespeople are really hard to hire. How are you going to know that he can outsell you?
So the one, past performance, right? So my firm belief is no good salesman's on the street. So I'm going to be stealing them from another company of some sort. So I'm going to have to go find somebody that's got a proven track record in a similar type industry that's already accomplishment, which means that's going to cost me a shit ton of money to drag them away from a very successful career. I know that in my head, that's the only way I'm going to be able to do it, unless I were to, do this thing like partner up with you, Mike, and make you go find them.
Well, partnering with us and make us go find them is really good. But Donnie, you're going to find them, like in the salesperson side, you're going to find them probably at an event that you attend.
Oh, likely.
You're going to find an industry event and you're going to be like, wow, you know what? That Kevin guy, he really knows what he's doing over there. And you're going to watch him, and you're going to watch him at the bar at the event, and you're going to watch his interaction. You're going to watch him and see him out, So at that initial thing, you're going to see all of those things you talked about earlier, how he treats the wait staff, how he treats other people. And you're going to have an idea of his character. And then you're going to be able to say, okay, let's give this guy a shot.
Yeah, I've never hired off of a resume in my entire life. We've always hired off of introductions or referrals. And that just has been a way we've operated, because if somebody you trust can put the nod on them and say, hey, you need to sit down and talk to this person, it just takes a lot of the pressure off that initial conversation. And you have a commonality to talk about out the gate.
Yeah. And so that gets into, really where we've made a big focus change in the last 12 months or so. We're really focusing on, 15 or so really solid companies and who they are and their culture, so that when we encounter people, Donnie, we're able to say, hey, you know what? I just met this vet, because we do a lot with veterans. I just met this vet and they would be a great fit for ABC company. And so it's in the networking, it's in the normal course of affairs that we encounter these folks. And then we can see their resume, and then we can say, okay, let's get them over to this particular place.
Well,
and we're working all year long for those companies.
Well, and what I like about that is, one, it takes a little bit of pressure off of you guys. I mean, I know they're hiring you guys to fulfill roles, but I love the idea that you're out there almost representing these 15 companies to find culture fit, right? So that's a cool way to go interact with people, because you're finding the human side first, and then you can go look at the talents and skills afterwards. Because once you bump into them, now they're a good person. Cool. Let's go look at their background. Let's go look and see what the things they're into. Let's go see if they fit inside of one of these companies.
Yeah. And I think that there's a real gray area of how far you can look into their background. You, as the hiring person, there's only so far you can look into that person in the HR context, truly, before you bring them on. I mean, that's what Ban the Box and all these other things are all about, right? Now, people stomp on that on a regular basis, but if I meet somebody socially or in another venue, I can really take a peek at them before I put them in. I put my hiring hat on and say, let's go get them out to this person. Yeah. And so when we send people forward, it's really important. Somebody just at the beginning of the year, we're working on a placement for a company here in Lakeville, and she asked me. She said, "So with your direct hires, what are your guarantees?" I said, "Well, for the first 30 days,
I guarantee we'll find you somebody."
Right. Well, if they fall off in the first 30 days, it's really probably not a cultural fit. If they fall off in 30 to 60 days, it's probably a misalignment in communication. If they fall off in 60 to 90, it's on you guys. And she said, so how does that work? And I'm like, I don't really know. I think we gave half of a refund in the last 11 years because we just focus so hard on it. I would rather not make a placement than make a bad placement. We're not in this, for quick hits. We want this relationship like we've had and like we can continue to build. And that's what hiring people is all about.
So a business owner is at the point where they're overwhelmed. They're like, I got to hire people. I need to hire someone to do stuff. Do you recommend they bring on a specialist that focuses on like a specific aspect of business, i.e., you find someone who can do your video editing. You find someone who does your email marketing. We brought on someone who just does podcast placement for us. Yep. Or do you have suggest that people find that generalist that will come in and can do like office manager and can do multiple tasks? How do you make that differentiation of what type of role you should have?
Yeah. So I think that, I mean, the three of us are vets. In each one of us has recognized that you have a commander and then you've got a first sergeant. And as a business owner, the most valuable thing that you can have is that first sergeant. It's that operations sergeant that can follow directions. So Kevin, to your point, finding those people that will take direction from you and can follow with commander's intent and get that video solution taken care of with 85%, and then allow you to make some of those final choices. That's really the wisdom there.
So, but let's say, we're running into a marketing capacity issue, right? Like we can't do any more marketing. Do I hire a marketing person, or do I hire a Facebook person, a Instagram person, a LinkedIn person? Do I go for a specialist, or do I go for an overall generalist in that area? Great
question. And I would suggest, and we're working with CD Mankato and some things like this. I would suggest the generalist. And the reason is because seasons change. And today, TikTok might be hot. Tomorrow, it's going to be banned. Today, this might be hot, and tomorrow it might be this. So your generalist, Donnie, is going to be able to keep their finger on the pulse of what comes and goes.
Well, let me push back on this, because every time we've done a generalist, it's not worked. Because they don't understand. We'll talk specifically in the marketing space, because when you hire a generalist in marketing, and it may be different in different industry, segments inside your business, right? Like a general operational person might be able to do this, but in marketing, in general, we found if you hire a social media manager, that just means they're really good in Canva. Right. So they're not actually dedicated to a platform, and right now you've got the 4, maybe 5 major social platforms that are moving so fast. And I agree with you that they could go away tomorrow, which means, unfortunately, that staff person no longer on the team unless you can find another spot for them. But we've found, especially when it comes to marketing, you've got to get dialed into the specialist. But I'd be curious about it from an operational, if we could hire the generalists there, because give them
sure. Well, I'll get you a contract right after our podcast, and game on, my friend. One of the things, Donnie, that I think is important, and I appreciate you pushing back on that, because one of the things that we found is that when you hire the specialist, they will continue to push that particular item after it's out of favor with the general public. They don't stay on the trend, but they stay on that platform. And
I can see that.
That becomes a problem. So prior to running Azul, the staffing company, I ran a graphic design and marketing company for 10 years. And in that process, I would see people that would get stuck on one particular, it's everything we got to do is on, Drupal or WordPress or whatever it was, and things would move forward. And if that person didn't adjust, then it held us backwards, or pulled us backwards. So I think that there's really an interesting mix, and that's where we have to keep our finger on, what our people are doing, and we have to really stay engaged, especially when it's something that has to be so nimble as marketing.
Yeah, because we're heading at the direction of, we're going to continue to hire specialists, and then we'll be ultimately hiring the director to sit over the top of them. The director's job is going to be, okay, let's make sure this platform is still running and gunning. What other platforms and things are coming down the pipes we need to be looking at? And it's going to be their job to pull the trigger if the platform's dying and no longer, a thing. So that's the direction we're handling. And I think that director role is likely more set up to be a generalist in marketing as a whole, because now they get to look at the data and the numbers and the stats to see what's working, what's not working. It's always fascinating to think through.
And I think I think you're spot on. And I think if you can be the guy who's got their finger on, is this platform and is this specialist, is the ROI on that really what I need to have? I think that's where it becomes really important, because Jody's right now working with somebody who's spending money on specialists, and I'm like, it's a horrible waste of money for this person to be doing their advertising in this certain area. And that specialist isn't going to tell them no because they're getting a check every week.
Right. So, that's a valid point. Man, I bet we could sit and do this all day, Mike. I really enjoy. I love your demeanor. I'm usually getting around a lot of these more loud, crazy, and I like your calm demeanor because it keeps me from getting too amped up. So appreciate you doing it. How do our listeners find you out there? How do they get in touch with you if they want to learn more, talk about the seasons, talk about staffing and recruiting and the like?
Yeah, so probably the best way for a lot of those folks to reach me would be through LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, look up Mike Wolbrink, and you can find me, message me, and we'll again talk about those side of things. We've got 2 websites that are up right now. One is azulprofessional.com that shows really what we do.
And Azul is spelled Azule.
Azule professional.com. And the other side of it, on the philanthropic side, we have our small foundation, which is Azul Foundation, AZULE Foundation.org. And that's really where we do a lot of our work with veterans and other areas.
Very cool. Well, Mike, thanks for hanging out with us, brother. It has been a pleasure sitting down and getting to know you. And I'm looking forward to the day that we can grab an adult beverage. We'll wait till the weather warms up there, though.
There we go.
I want to get him up here to do a polar plunge.
Yeah, not going to happen. Thanks again for doing this, Mike.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Man, what a cool episode. Mike is just a good dude, man. I love hanging out with him already.
Yeah, he's been someone I've been meeting off and on with for years, and I always love the conversations we have. He brings such, and I think it's because he's really analytical too. Like me, so it's the insight he gives when.
Well, that's the part that I didn't like about him.
Cool. Yeah, that's that's just because you won't embrace your inner introvert and analytical person. So, but one of the things that it was really surprising in this conversation is we brought him on to talk about how you hire and how you outsource stuff, and we ended up talking about messaging and that whole concept of using awards for your business to really flesh out what you actually do as a company and what your messaging is. And I thought that was just genius.
I agree. I'm really fascinated, and I have not done this yet. So this will be one of my kind of takeaways and to-dos, and is to find some business awards to go after. I love the idea of filling out. Let me correct that.
He loves the idea of filling out paperwork.
Yeah, no, that's the part I'm correcting. I love the idea of going through the process, whether we win or not, just to learn those valuable lessons and things about the company, because I think there's probably a lot of areas that we haven't thought about or looked at as we look at the company, and there's probably some real growth opportunities there. And hey, bonus if we win, but at this point, without having to go through the process, I think going through the process is the win.
Oh yeah, and it's really cool because that whole concept is of describing what you do on this award application in a way that people who know nothing about your business understand what you do and the impact that you have. And I think that is a huge challenge for, it's for us definitely at times, but I think just for entrepreneurs in general, especially when they're trying to figure out, how to grow and scale. A lot of them don't understand exactly what they do. And if they do understand what they do, they don't understand how to say it in a way that other people are like, oh, that's so cool. I want to be part of that too. So I think that is such a huge exercise and a valuable exercise for entrepreneurs and business owners in general.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Here in Fort Worth, they have the business plan competition. I'm sure a lot of cities do that. And that experience of being able to watch these companies do their presentations. And actually, I think on the Stevie Don episode, I talked a lot about the one presentation I saw where this dude just flat out crushed it. But they go through, at least on that in particular, man, they're going through weeks upon weeks of things building out their business plan, and that's a lot of attention to detail. So I'm sure that part's going to drive me nuts, but it's probably exactly some of the things that we need to be doing. So
well, and the other one that pops into my head that we should look at is the Bunker Labs. They have their kind of mastermind group for veterans that are business owners, but then they have a huge pitch event at the end of each one. And I'm like, well, that seems kind of cool too. And I think it would get some, bonuses for us as well. So, but yeah, I think there's a ton out there. It's just, neither of us have been really focused on what awards and accolades we can hang on our walls for the company. It's really been out there, and and how do we impact businesses? So I think that's going to be a cool exercise for us.
Yeah, I agree. So if you guys are listening to this and you know some business awards that we need to go after, holler at us, let us know what's out there, because best we're going to be able to do is a Google search and just see what the hell pops up. So if you hear of anything. But Mike's a good dude, man. Make sure you guys go follow him. I think, we're going to see a lot more things where we can all partner up together and do some cool things together. So, and as always, guys, if you got any value out of this, any tips, tricks, anything you can use, please do us a favor and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this or watching this. And those reviews really help us get out to more and more people. And share this with somebody who would get some value out of it. That would mean the absolute ton to us. So, but as always, guys, love you, mean it. See you, bye.